begin industrial action, blames federal government's non-response to demand. In international news, tough talk, despair on Tehran streets as U.S. sanctions take effect. And in sport, 2019 African qualifiers, Bafana of South Africa face injury crisis ahead of Super Eagles clash.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigeria's organized labor says the federal government is planning to clamp down on essential services unions and the leaders ahead of tomorrow's planned nationwide indefinite strike. The unions believe this would force the federal government's hand to implement the 30,000 minimum wage. Labor unions have also shunned the meeting organized by the federal government to resolve the crisis. They insist tomorrow's strike would begin as planned. Leaders of various unions have advised Nigerians who will not participate in mass rallies and picketing to stay indoors to avoid what they describe as unpleasant situations.
Solidarity forever for the union makes us strong.
If these conditions are not met, definitely a strike is surely going to take place.
The initial demand of labor, particularly NSC and TUC, is 66,500. But we know that the process of collective bargaining and discussion by social partners entails give and take. And we have undergone that process for 1 year, and we have agreed on a figure.
The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has begun an indefinite strike action on Sunday over the non-implementation of the Memorandum of Action signed with the federal government. ASUU National President Professor Biodun Ogunyemi says all entities made to the federal government to honor the agreement with the union were not met and that he had no other option than to go on what he described as total, comprehensive and indefinite strike action. Ogunyemi said the government was not interested in public universities because children of the top politicians and rich men in the society patronize private universities to the detriment of public institutions. The House of Representatives could reopen the probe into an alleged $1.3 billion power sector fraud against General Electric and Roxanne Engineering. Chairman of the House Committee on Power, Dan ASUU, says the issues have lingered for years and would not be swept under the carpet. The allegation came via a signed petition by 10 civil society organizations in September. President Muhammadu Buhari had recently questioned how a former government allegedly spent $16 billion on the sector without results. The president also accused the National Assembly of not exercising adequate oversight on the sector. The two companies were blacklisted in the 2008 House of Representatives report. The Lagos State chapter of the All Progressives Congress has chosen a former Commissioner for Works, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, as a running mate to its 2019 governorship candidate, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Chairman of Lagos APC, Tunde Balogun, officially presented Hamzat on Sunday during a press conference at the party secretariat. The event was witnessed by party chieftains. Balogun described Sanwo-Olu and Hamzat as a fantastic team that would deepen development in Lagos if elected in 2019. Governorship candidate Sanwo-Olu expressed confidence that Lagos would be better enriched with Hamzat on board. People's Democratic Party's 5 House of Representatives members from Ekiti State have expressed their confidence in the State Working Committee of the party led by Gboyega Oguntuashi. They also immediately dissociated themselves from Saturday's meeting led by the state Senate Minority Leader Biodun Olujimi, which called for the dissolution of the committee. The working committee members expressed their loyalty to the immediate past governor of the state, Ayodele Fayose. The legislature said there was no leadership vacuum in the PDP in Ekiti State. They called on the Senate leadership to caution Olujimi against causing a crisis that would affect the party's chances at the 2019 general elections. The police has paraded 19 suspects in connection with the death of retired Major General Idris Alkali. Tena Chope, Police Public Relations Officer of the Plateau State Command, presented the suspect in Jos on Sunday. After the officer has been declared missing, his body was found in late October in an abandoned well at Gushwert in Shen community of Just South after a search by security operators. The 19 suspects included 13 earlier handed over to the police command by the Nigerian Army, while 6 are among the 8 the police declared wanted in connection with the crime. 2 of the 8 suspects declared wanted are still at large. Police say the suspects were found to have strong links with the crime after interrogation and would be charged when investigation ends. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has started moves to approach Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, this week with a request to file charges against former Petroleum Resources Minister Dezani Alison Madueke and to seek her extradition from the United Kingdom. As part of its investigation, the EFCC says it has traced 47 billion naira and almost $500 million to the ex-minister in foreign banks and billions of naira more in some Nigerian banks. There are reports the EFCC has concluded investigation of the allegations against Alison Madueke. More than 50 suspects in some of the cases linked to her have been arraigned, especially in the 2015 alleged pool bribe of 23 billion naira. The federal government says it is worried and displeased over illegal fishing activities carried out mostly by foreigners in Nigerian waters. Minister of State for Agriculture and Rural Development, Senator Heineken Lokobiri, says people come on Nigerian waters, fish, then transfer to another ship with no record of what they have taken from the country's artisan waters. He says this is one major challenge Nigeria and member states of the sub-region need to tackle. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has dismissed speculations of an impending petroleum product scarcity in the country. NNPC spokesman Undu Ogbamadi says it was very important to dispel suggestions that the threat of strike action by the Nigerian Labour Congress would result in a slip into a round of product shortages across the country. Ogbamadi says the corporation has enough supply for 39 days, with 25 days available on land. Insurance practitioners are miffed over the reluctance of the Lagos State government to renew its insurance coverage for the 2017-2018 business year. They say though the state collected 50,000 naira each from more than 40 insurance brokers as application fee, it still refused to renew its insurance coverage a few weeks to the end of the financial year. Some stakeholders say the possibility of the state government renewing its policy for the 2018-2019 business year is slim as a result of next year's election. Some of the stakeholders say despite regular dialogue with Lagos State government on the issue, nothing concrete has happened. Coming up, African stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets with Kenya President Kenyatta at China Import-Export. And later, protests in Iran over U.S. sanctions.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. A quick flight across Africa. U.S. President Donald Trump is planning to end trade benefits for Mauritania for not making sufficient progress on ending forced labor practices. The U.S. Trade Representative's office said in a statement, Trump has determined that after an annual eligibility review, that Mauritania is not in compliance with requirements of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which provides duty-free treatment for certain goods. Deputy U.S. Trade Representative C.J. Mahoney said forced or compulsory labor practices like hereditary slavery have no place in the 21st century. Mahoney said he hopes Mauritania will work with the U.S. to eradicate the practice so its AGOA eligibility may be restored in the future. The UK government is set to announce a change in policy that would allow nationals of the 53 Commonwealth countries to join Britain's armed forces. Currently, Commonwealth citizens living outside the UK are barred from joining unless they have lived in the UK for 5 years. The UK Ministry of Defence is lifting this rule in a bid to recruit more servicemen and women after a report released earlier this year found the UK Armed Forces is short of 8,200 soldiers, sailors and air personnel. This policy change means Commonwealth citizens, including those from African countries, will be considered for roles even if they have never lived in Britain. Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki says the level of trust between his country and Ethiopia has grown since signing a peace deal in July. He added there is need to iron out further elements of their ties to make their cooperation sustainable. The neighbors had been bitter enemies ever since the two-year border war broke out in 1998 following disagreements over trade. Some 80,000 people were killed in that conflict. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed extended an olive branch in April, shortly after his appointment, as part of the package of reforms that have reshaped the political landscape in the Horn of Africa. The two countries have reopened crossing points and embassies and resumed flights between their capitals. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta in Shanghai. Kenyatta is attending China's first International Import Expo. The two leaders last met in Beijing in September during the summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. They had both agreed at that time to push for closer ties between China and Kenya. They welcomed Kenyatta to the Import Expo and said that China is ready to help increase the added value and competitiveness of Kenyan products and expand imports from Kenya. President Kenyatta thanked China for hosting the expo, which adopts a major innovative move to open its market. He also thanked China for making Africa an important direction in its opening up. He said Kenya is ready to work with China in safeguarding multilateralism and the free trade system and contribute to the building of a community with a shared future for humanity. The European Union said on Saturday it has recalled its chief representative in Tanzania for discussions following reports the Tanzanian government had asked him to leave the country. An EU official said the representative will discuss the situation with senior officials in Brussels. The EU, like the United States, has been critical of the government's human rights record. It has also condemned recent incidents it said had tarnished Tanzania's relatively good record. Rights activists claim that President John Magufuli, who came to power in 2015, has cracked down on dissent and freedom of expression. Britain's Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall have been in Ghana since Friday. Children lined the streets waving Ghanaian and UK flags to welcome them. Charles said returning to Kumasi brought back fond memories of time he spent in the city 41 years ago. They have also attended a traditional celebration of leaders as part of their visit to the country. Prince Charles is scheduled to address young entrepreneurs later today. Next destination for the royal couple is Nigeria. When we return, protests in Iran over U.S. sanctions. And later, Bafana top stars faced major injury crisis ahead of Super Eagles clash in 2019 African qualifier.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
Wendy,
this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the foreign scene, thousands of Iranians chanting death to America rallied on Sunday to mark the anniversary of the seizure of the U.S. Embassy during the 1979 Islamic Revolution and the reimposition of U.S. sanctions of Iran's oil sector, which goes into effect today. As the sanctions loomed, the Islamic Republic said last week the U.S. sanctions will have severe consequences for the world order. U.S. President Donald Trump speaks to cuts to zero oil purchases from the Islamic Republic. Tehran says it has complied fully with the nuclear accord and its commitment has been repeatedly confirmed by the UN. Atomic watchdog International Atomic Energy Agency, Trump complained that the deal approved by his predecessor Barack Obama does not cover Iran's ballistic missiles, its role in regional wars, or what happens after the nuclear pact begins to expire in 2025. European signatories of the nuclear deal are still committed to the accord, so this is a unilateral move by the United States. Americans will head to the polls on Tuesday in a midterm election many believe will determine the future of the nation for the next 2 years. It is also expected to be a referendum on President Donald Trump's administration. Republican President Donald Trump and Democrat former President Barack Obama made dueling election appearances on Sunday, offering sharply different views on the country's problems, but agreeing on the high stakes for voters in the final hours of a tight campaign. Obama condemned Republicans and Trump without addressing him by name for what he described as a divisive policies and repeated lies. Trump and Obama are the most popular figures in their parties, and their appearances on the campaign trail are designed to stoke enthusiasm among core supporters in the late stages of this midterm congressional election. Relatives of the victims of an Indonesian jet that crashed into the sea off Jakarta last week are demanding answers on Monday as to why the plane had been passed fit to fly. They also call for continued search for their loved ones. Indonesian authorities extended the search for victims by 3 days on Sunday and for a second black box recorder. With emotion, relatives addressed questions to the nation officials at the news conference that included Transport Minister and the head of the country's Transportation Safety Committee. Indonesia is one of the worst, fastest growing aviation markets, but its safety record has been patchy. Its Transport Safety Panel investigated 137 serious aviation incidents between 2012 and 2017. A Turkish official is claiming Saudi Arabia sent a two-man cleanup team to raise evidence of journalist Jamal Khashoggi's killing a week after he disappeared at a Saudi consulate in Istanbul. He says this is a sign top Saudi officials knew of the crime. Confirming a report in Turkey's pro-government Sabah newspaper, the officials said the chemist and toxicologist were charged with raising evidence before Turkish investigators were given access to the Saudi consulate and consul's residence. Sabah identified the two men as Ahmed Abdulaziz al-Janabi and Khalid Yahya al-Zarani. He said they arrived in Turkey as part of an 11 8-person team sent to carry out the inspections with Turkish officials. Turkish Vice President Fuat Oktay called for an investigation into newspaper reports last week that Khashoggi's body was disposed of by dissolving it in acid. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has told the United Nations top human rights body on Monday that it was investigating Jamal Khashoggi's murder at the Istanbul consulate last month with a view to prosecuting the perpetrators. Bandar al-Aiban, President of the Human Rights Commission of Saudi Arabia, who headed the government's delegation at a regular review of its record, said in a speech to the UN Human Rights Council that King Salman had instructed the public prosecutor to investigate the case according to applicable laws and to bring perpetrators to justice. Up next, sport. Bafana top stars face major injury crisis ahead of Super Eagles clash in 2019 AFCON qualifier. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Super ASUU. MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM.
That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sports. Brazilian tactician Rafael Everton has been unveiled as new head coach of Nigeria Professional Football League club Aqua United. He's on a one-year contract. Everton replaced Abdul Maikaba, who recently joined former NPFL champions Plateau United. The young Brazilian gained prominence in Nigeria as a guiding FC Ifeanyi to win the ITO Federation Cup in 2016. Top stars of Bafana of South Africa are facing a major injury crisis ahead of their 2019 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying fixture against the Super Eagles. It is uncertain if Bongali Zungu and Kiegan Dolly, as well as home-based stars Dian Former, Bradley Grobler and Sibosiso Vilakazi, would be available for the Bafana game because of injuries. Brentford has already been ruled out of the all-important clash against the Super Eagles after he was injured in a penultimate league clash against Norwich City, in which they lost 1-0. Well, so sorry for all the injuries. We wish them quick recovery. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.